Good morning. I've just returned from the snow and it was warmer there than it is in here. If Mum, your grandmother, your sister, your auntie, your friend were here now, I trust one of the things she would do would be this. She would slowly raise her hand and pray over you. I'm not sure it would be in this order, but one of the things would be that you would warm up. She would be praying for you, her family, as she has always prayed for you, her family, for her grandchildren, for her extended family. In fact, she prayed for everybody. Praying never came naturally for her. But once she got the hang of it, she never stopped. till the day she could no longer pray. And that was the day that God called her home. E te whaia. A kua tū tika koe ki mui tō atua. Kua rongo koe ki tō karanga e te kotiro. Kua mutu e koe te mahi ko ho mai e a hau ki a koe. Kua mutu pai, kua mutu tika, kua mutu pono. I ngā mea katoa ko ho mai a hau ki a koe. I runga i tērā e te kōtiro, tēnei te atua i karanga tia nei. A koe rā te pauri mā mātou katoa. It's not often that we get to say what I want to say about our fire today. That she was a woman who knew her God. And that was the God that she trusted you to. And so even though we have lost her, God will continue to be faithful to those prayers which she prayed faithfully for each one of us this morning. To those of you who are unable to join with us in person, who watch via stream, for those who are unable to be here. Mum's prayer was the same. And so we give thanks to God for the gift and the life and for all that you have meant to us. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to invite you to join with us in the words of the Lord's Prayer. Before we stand and sing together the hymn that Mum chose for us to sing in this, her funeral service. Kei noi tātou. E te pāpā e tangi nei mātou engari e whakapono ana mātou ki a koe nāu tēnei o tō tātou whaia i tango nei. Ko tō mātou ino i tēnei wā e te matua. Ho mai ki tōna whānau, tō kaha, kia mōhio hoki ki taurangi i Mārie. Wai hoki i ngā inoi ko inoi nei, tēnei mātou mihi ana ki a koe te matua. Ka haere tonu o ringaringa kei runga i a mātou katoa. Aha hoa te matenga o tō tātou nei whaia. God, we ask for your strength for the family. Bless them in their faithful care of their mum. Father, grant them strength as they prepare to take mum home before they finally return her once more back to you. Be their strength now, we ask you, God. For this we give you thanks and we give you praise. Amen.
Good morning, family, friends. Before Mum got seriously ill or worse, and she told me that she wanted me to do a reading from out of the Bible at a funeral. It's like, where do I read from, Mum? And she said, you'll know. We know that Mum loved the Lord. We know that she spent her days, a lot of days, coming to church, praying for our family. And she studied the Word inside out for years and years and years, and she probably knew the Word better than a lot of people that I know. But this morning, as I was thinking about Mum, there's a passage in 1 Thessalonians, and it talks about the hope that Mum has, and that she lived by and is now enjoying, and she wants us to understand where she is. And it's found in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13 through to 18. And it says here, the guy writing it is Paul, but it could be Mum speaking it. And he says, I do not want you to be ignorant, brothers and sisters and family, concerning those who have died, lest you should sorrow as others who have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so God will bring with him those who have died in Jesus. For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain when the Lord comes will by no means precede those who are asleep. That means we'll all get to share in the glory at the same time. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. And then it says finally, therefore comfort one another with these words. Mum's life was based on what lay ahead and her desire for us to be with her there so that we can live together again.
Unlike my brother, I only have one pair of glasses. I can barely see out of those sometimes. Right. Kia ora, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for coming to one of Mum's final dues. Got another one to go up at Kennedy Bay. She liked to party today, our Mum, and she would certainly love to have spoken to you all today. Unfortunately, she can't, but yeah, she's grateful that you're here nonetheless, as are the family. So this is Mum's life story. Mum was born on the 26th of October 1932. A baby girl born to Gladys Matingaro Thwaites. She was born at the home of John and Eva Thwaites in Kennedy's Bay. Her father, Stanley Dixon, had died before she was born. Her mother gave her the name of Ngareta Rosemary, but because she was brought up by her grandmother, who thought her name was Rosemary Ngareta, she was always known as Rosemary until she herself applied for her birth certificate and discovered the difference. When she married, she used her official name, Ngareta Rosemary. Because her mother was a single mum, her grandparents took over her care, but there was one thing that happened to determine who the caregivers would be. That was the children at the time had a singing contest, and the person who sang the best became the caregivers. Her uncle sang, and so did her cousins, who really couldn't sing well, so guess who won? Yes, her uncle. And Mum said she often thought that he ruled the day. Her mum did marry, and Mum's siblings, a lot of them here today, were Rangi, who was Dad's daughter, then Mum, who was Mum's daughter, then the late Robert, June and Robin, Ron, Keith, Noeline, Peggy, Anne, Peter, Karen, who died as a baby, Kevin and Mark. Her grandparents had a 120-acre farm, and they milked 30 to 35 cows by hand. There was no power back then, and when Mum was old enough, she too took her turn milking. Her grandmother said a good milker could milk a cow in 8 minutes. That's really going, said Mum. Then she took her turn on the separator, which changed the milk into cream and skim milk. The cream was sent by cream lorry to Coromandel to the butter factory. The skim milk either went to calves or pigs which they reared. Then they had to carry water to clean the shed. Adults washed the separator. Then they drove the cows back to the day paddock. After that, she'd rush home, change, grab her lunch, and then mainly run to school about a mile or a mile and a half away. Sometimes they were lucky enough to catch a ride on the cream truck, driven by her uncle. Yes, even then they were on twice a day milking, so after school it was start all over again, doing the milking after school. The homestead also had no power and had a large outside kitchen with a large fireplace that had to be kept going all day. And it was the kids' job to help drag wood down from the bush down to the house and chop and carry the wood inside. She reports that it was a chore at times. One thing that bugged her was that Gran liked a cup of tea in bed in the mornings. This, of course, in the winter season when the cows were out, so she'd usually call, "Rosemary, Rosemary." Mum said she would try to pretend to be asleep. But it was no good. They had to get up and make a cup of tea, which involved getting the fire going, putting the kettle on, and then waiting for it to boil. Apparently, many great stories were told while sitting by the fire, and as the lights were candles or kerosene lamps then, they used to scare themselves by telling ghost stories at night. Her older relations always knew a few, of course, and as the main house was only a few yards away, it seemed like miles after all the ghost stories, apparently, Mum writes. Growing up in Kennedy's Bay was awesome. She lived in an area where Gran's sisters and brothers also had farms, so they were never lonely and had many friends. She lived near the sea and had a river running past the farm. They collected seafood and Uncle gave them crayfish. They had watercress and veggie gardens and pigs for bacon. The school, when Rosemary started at 4 years old, was a public school. She had to start then because a cousin was going and it was his last year, so Mum had to learn the way to school. Later the school became a Māori school to enable students to pass exams needed to go to Maori colleges. At 13 she went to Paeroa to high school and stayed with an aunt and uncle, probably Uncle Mac maybe, possibly, in Paeroa. They lived across the road from the school. She spent 4 years in high school, then teaching new entrants in Maori schools, which she loved. Then on one day in 1952, her cousins brought back some friends from Napier, and this guy walked into her life. His name was Gordon Rumble. She only taught for one more season before moving to Auckland. They were married on the 15th of August 1953. Karen, who's here today, hello Karen, there she is over there, was born while they lived in a flat in Auckland. They then went on to a mixed farm, pigs, chooks and 600 ducks, while Mum was pregnant with me. Dad's brother Stan came to visit and said they were looking for carpenters in a place called Martree. Dad applied and got the job, but couldn't move until Diane was born in 1957. He started then with Lovegrove Construction in Martree. The winters were very cold then. She remembers weeks of cold frosts and getting through 1 tonne of coal over winter. And earthquakes were quite common as well. Edgar, Norman, Mike, and my other brothers were born in Martieri. Mum and Dad bought a 10-acre farmlet where they milked cows and had sheep for meat, fruit trees and a large veggie garden, which we boys hated digging. In fact, Dad would set the task before he went to work, and Mum would often help just before he came home to get something done before he came and told us off. They moved to 3 different homes during this time. One of the homes was at Okahukura, get that right, Peter, and had Just Married painted on the roof. The trains would toot every time they passed. Rose was involved in the local church in Martieri and held Sunday school classes after church and was known for giving away Bibles to anyone who wanted one. Dad changed jobs, leaving Lovegroves, and commenced truck driving and general repairs for Jack Turner Limited. When Gordon turned 60, they retired and moved to Tirau. They discovered they both had excellent retail skills while doing the markets. Gordon, the tool man, and Rose sold china, dolls and collectibles, and once again gave Bibles away to anyone who was interested. She joined the local church, and after a while she studied and became a lay minister and was able to take the 8 o'clock service on Sundays in Tirau. She wrote it made a huge difference in her life and that she nearly wasn't going to join the church as she didn't know where it was, until a voice told her to look in the yellow pages. She discovered that the minister at that church had baptised her children in Ohura back in the day. She helped with the children's group, mainly music, and was leader of the church prayer chain. In 2002, Dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and she notes at this time that her faith gave her strength. The following year, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. It was held at Ruapehu Marae in Tiro. It was a wonderful celebration, thanks to family working together to make it a special night. In 2012, Mum celebrated her 80th birthday in Papamoa, another big do. Sadly for Dad, this was the last celebration. Dad passed on 16th of November 2012 when they were living with Norm in Papamoa. Christianity was always very important in Mum's life, right from the early days in Matieri to her last days. And so were cats. She and Dad seemed to feed all the strays in Tira at one time. I think they had about 18 cats at one stage they were feeding every day. It seemed like a lot more than that some days. Mum moved to Thames with Norm and Lim about 9 years ago, and then started attending the church across the road from the house, which is the church we're gathered in today. While living in Thames, she planned a modest 85th birthday party with a simple afternoon tea, which quickly turned into a full lunch for 120 people. It was a big do, great event with all the family and friends helping to make it a great day, and people still talk about it today. She loved travel and would zip over to Australia numerous times to see family and grandchildren. She went to Bali for Dane's wedding and had many visits to other family members in Whangamata, Wairoa, Pataru and Tamaranui. Wherever she went, she was looked after with sightseeing and shopping. She made it a point to visit all family when she could. For example, when she was in Sydney, Dane and Nikki would spoil her. And when she was in Wairoa, she was famous for her love of seafood, of course, especially kina. One morning she demolished nearly a kilo of kina for breakfast. She was, of course, deaf as a post in latter years, and I'm sure many of us know, so having a conversation with her was always fun. She had hearing aids, but always seemed to have not quite plugged them in right. She was quite tech-savvy, though, and had online banking and Facebook, and preferred FaceTime calls, but if the hearing aids weren't working, all we could see was an ear looking back at us on the phone. Yeah, or the brow. That's it. She was famous for her love of cards, birthday, anniversary, Easter, Christmas, a card for every occasion. She was famous for giving gifts as well. She loved to give. She had been diagnosed with liver and heart failure 3 years ago, but soldiered on, really enjoying her life and the love of her family as best she could. Norm and Lim were there for her over those last 9 years. Trips to visit dentists, friends, fishing, attend funerals, and then in latter years to the doctor and hospital in Waikato and here in Thames. In her final days, she received brilliant care from the staff at Thames Hospital, the district nurses and her doctor, Margaret Powell. She was part of an fantastic extended whānau, and many are here today with us. My brother Norm said she was much larger than just our family. And when I look around, I see just how true that was. So thank you all for being part of Mum's life. Rest in peace, Mum.
Ed, Peter, well done for honouring Mum. It's a chance now if you would like to come to share briefly with us here this morning.
Right, kia ora everybody. My name is Tan Keelan, and Nena was the neighbour across the road. She was our babysitter. She was also kind of like our youth worker. She was an amazing lady. I felt a privilege because when she was living in Matiere, we got to spend more time with her than sometimes her mokas did. But we had lots and lots of fun when they used to come over, playing at the school, doing all the things that the mokas did. So she was just so truly a nena. She always looked after us, she fed us, and she made a difference for not just me and my family, but for all of the youth that were in Matiere, because her love of God was so strong that she took us for Sunday schools. She made sure we had biscuits and Milo, then we'd have all these little psalms, and I was one of those recipients of those Bibles, and I love it. I still have it to this day, and I share it with my children. So, Nena, all your lessons, I hold on to them. They are a strong part of who I am as a person. And I'm going to pass that on to my children. It's my taonga tuku iho, and that's from this nena. So, to all my whānau, I'm so sorry for your guys' loss. But now my mum is probably up there, one of the first people apart from Granddad, holding on to her, giving her a big, huge cuddle. So, ngā mihi aroha kia koutou katoa.
Hi everyone. I'm Tracy, and I'm one of Auntie Rose's many nieces. My dad was her brother. I want to just stand up here on behalf of all our whānau that celebrate our birthdays with her. I was born on the 26th of October, and she also has another brother, Uncle Ron, who was born on the same day. So this year, our ages would go 55, 82 and 89. Of course, I'm the youngest out of us all. But every year Auntie Rose would send me a birthday card or ring me up to wish me a happy birthday. And the other weekend, a couple of weekends ago, Uncle Ron was up and we were having our time together, and she said, "Happy birthday. This is the last time I'm going to be able to say happy birthday to you. But on our day, on the 26th of October, there'll be a rainbow, and that will be my birthday wish to you." She also gave me a little tonga, and it had scented perfume. And the night she died, it wasn't open or anything, but I could smell the scent. To my cousins, I love you all. And I know the next year's going to be hard, but we're all here for you guys. I just want to read something before I finish that I took off Auntie Rose's page. And it goes like this. "Don't cry for me now, I have died, for I am still here, I am by your side. My body's gone, but my soul is here. Please don't shed another tear, I am still here, I'm all around. Only my body lies in the ground. I am the snowflake that kisses your nose. I am the frost that nips your toes. I am the sun bringing you light. I am the star shining so bright. I am the rain refreshing the earth. I am the laughter, I am the mirth. I am the bird up in the sky. I am the cloud that's drifting by. I am the thoughts inside your head. While I'm still here, I can't be dead." Thank you.
Whakalofalahi atu ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. My name is Moana Te Moana Nui, and I'm a niece-in-law of Auntie Rose. Not that she made, for those of us who didn't have a blood connection to her, she still loved us the same way. How do you explain the love and life of a matriarch? The matriarch of her siblings, of her children, of all the grandchildren, all the mokopuna. How do you explain that loss of someone who was just so admired, so loved, who had a kind heart and a kind soul? Auntie, this is for you. This is this reading that... Life is like a journey on a train, with its stations, with changes of routes and with accidents. At birth, we all boarded the train and we met our parents, and we believe they will always travel on our side. However, at some station, our parents will step down from the train, leaving us on this journey that we travel alone. As time goes by, other people will board the train, and they will be significant. They could be your siblings, they could be your friends, they could be your children, and they could even be the love of your life. Many will step down from the train and leave a permanent vacuum. Others will go so unnoticed that we don't even realise that they've vacated their seats. This train ride will be full of joy, sorrow, fantasy, expectations, hellos, goodbyes and farewells. Success consists of having a good relationship with all the passengers, requiring that we give the best of ourselves. The mystery to everyone is, though, we don't know at which station we ourselves will step down. So we must live in the best way. We must always remember to love, to forgive, and to offer the best of who we are. It is important to do this because when the time comes for us to step down and leave our seat empty, we should leave behind memories, beautiful memories, for those who will continue to travel on the train of life without us. We always wish you a joyful journey for the coming years on your train of life. We must remember to reap success, give lots of love and be happy. Most importantly, always be thankful for the journey. Lastly, Auntie, for everyone that's here today and those who couldn't make it today, we thank you for being the matriarch and the passenger on our train. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. E hara. I te mea no mai nei. Te
I don't think many of you will know me. My name is Joan Potu. I grew up in Martree with all of the Rumbles. My mother was a caterer and Mrs. Rumble used to work for my mum. And one of the things I remember fondly is if we didn't make our bed and Mrs. Rumble was working, we knew it would be made that night when we got home. She loved working for Mum, and Mum loved having her work for her. She was just one of there was two or three of them. There was Mrs. Parkow and Mum and Mrs. Rumble that worked from home, and then Mum would do the catering jobs in the Tamarunui or Martree or wherever they were. But I don't even know how many years she worked for Mum, but it was a long time. And I've got very, very fond memories of her. She'd be sitting out on a bucket, an old cow bucket, upside down on the veranda with a smoke, and Mrs. Parkow, and they would be peeling sacks of spuds, and they would sit out there and peel them, and you'd hear them talking away, and you'd hear all what was going on in Martree, and we'd all know what was going on, and it was lovely. But and I went to school with all the boys and the girls, and I saw Rose on my dad's funeral. Norman and Peter brought her down to Dad's funeral in May, so it was beautiful to see her there. And I'm sad to say she's gone. So, but I loved her very much.
Good morning. My name is Robbie. I'm one of two coordinators with the Selwyn Centre here at St George's Church. We're a social group. We meet every Wednesday morning, and the aim of our group is to provide fellowship and support for one another. Rose joined our group in March 2014. She was a faithful member, always coming when she could, and referred to us as her group. Rose enjoys her Wednesday mornings get-togethers, and she always came with a big smile. And she always had a nice, welcoming smile in her soft, kind voice for everyone else who came. She was also ready to lend an ear and a support to anyone who needed it, which is one of the purposes of our group too, so she was a great member. Rose liked to play a game with us called Uno. Now, Uno is a card game with numbers and colours, and she was always in that group. But Rose liked to win. But she also celebrated other people's successes, which was good. She liked to talk about her family, whom she was very, very proud of. She also mentioned the times of having to get up and milk cows before and after school, which she knew I could not relate to. Rose will be very much missed in our group and by those of us who had the pleasure to know her. Thank you.
Kia ora e te whānau. Nā mihi nui kia koutou i tēnei wā. He mihi mahana ki te whānau pani. Kia ora. My name is Pare Reynolds. Actually, I'm one of the Kepa kids, you Rumble kids. Okay, so I stand here today to give thanks to Rose and Gordon Rumble and their family because we were the Kepa family in Matiere. So Matiere is what we called Matri in the old days. Peter, Edgar, Diane, Norman, you are the kids, the Rumble kids that I remember. I understand there's some other siblings younger than you. But to stand here for my brothers that you all went to school with, and my younger sisters, Kathy, Rangi, and Julia, they send their love. They want to be here today, but they have another funeral at home. So, he mihi mahana kia koutou i tēnei wā. Rose and Gordon Rumble, they were actually in Matiere when we got there. There were 13 Kepa kids that went to Matiere. Matiere school was about to close, but it was the 8 Kepa kids that kept it open. Yeah. They were wonderful times, and Rose and Gordon, they were sort of in the era of my mum and dad. And Rose was very much like my mum, and I think there was only a year's difference. And my mum, after 13 kids, died at the age of 93. So I congratulate Rose, and I know what you're talking about, Whaia, when you talk about the matriarch of a whānau. And we're very privileged to come from the families of women like Rose and my mother. So, ngā mihi nui kia koutou i tēnei wā, te whānau pani. Whaia, would you come and sing a waiata with me, please? I can't sing, that's why I need tautoko. Kia ora. And this waiata I've chosen is Ngā Whakamoemiti, because if anyone knows what that means, it's giving thanks. Kia ora whaia, you can sing?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Ngā whakamoemiti, whakawhetai e hue, mō au manakitanga, ki te iwi e taunei, ko koe te piringa, ka puta ki te oranga e te ariki pai mari e.
Well, thank you for each one of you who have shared memories with us this morning. Following this service, there'll be a refreshment in the hall just adjacent, a chance for you to share your stories with one another. For now, we're going to take a few moments and enjoy some memories in photos.
Unforgettable, That's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way. And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable in every way, and forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more unforgettable in every way. And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. unforgettable in every way. And forevermore, that's how you stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too.
Well, unlike the soundtrack to that slideshow, God was faithful to Mum. And that was because Mum was faithful to God. We heard how Mum and Dad would have stalls at the market together. And Dad one day had a stall opposite Mum, and Mum had heard God say to her, I want you to make a sign and display it at your stall. Well, she wasn't keen, but she did it anyway. And when she gathered enough courage, she slowly pulled the sign from under her table, and it said, God is the reason for the season. Dad wasn't very impressed with her, and he had words later. Likewise, she heard God say to her, I want you to give Bibles away at your stall. She did gather those Bibles, but she put them underneath the table. The idea was if she got enough courage, she would ask people if they would like one. And then she heard God say to her, no, I want you to put them on top of your table, to which she did. And of course, all those Bibles disappeared. She remembers sitting in church one day, and God said to her, I want you to lay your hand on the person in front of you. She was quite unsure and therefore not confident about doing that, but she hesitantly did, placing her hand on the woman's shoulder. The woman turned to her and said, I never knew anyone cared. God is faithful because Mum was faithful. As she became obedient to the voice of God, that's when she experienced God's grace and God's love. Mum had been talking for 2 years about this day today. And I remember the first time we had that conversation. She said to me, you know I'm from Pairo, right? From Te Paiohauraki. Well, I'm from there. But I had never had an auntie with flash eyes like hers. So I was very, very proud. She talked about this day, not in haste. She wasn't in a hurry to die, just like she wasn't in a hurry to pull up the sign. She wasn't in a hurry to put those Bibles on her table. But she was faithful, and she was obedient to all she trusted God would have her do. In turn, to you, the family, it's that faithfulness of your mother, of your grandmother, that now God remains faithful to you. E te pononga tika, e te pononga pai. Uru mai I roto I ngā ringa ringa o tō atua. Shortly, we're going to pray and commend Rose to God's keeping. And then as you join together for refreshments. Mum is going to remain in here, so feel free to take some time and hang out with her while you can. At 1 o'clock, for those of you who will travel with Mum to Kennedy's Bay, we will gather here and prepare to depart. For those who are unaware, Mum's service will be held this Friday, 11 a.m. in Kennedy's Bay. I invite you to stand together. E te whaia ko ihoa anake e tapu ana, e tika ana, e marama ana. I runga i tēnā whakapono, ka tuku atu ko e te whaia ki tāna whakawā me ana mahi tohu, ki tāna murunga hara me tōna aroha. Kia whakapaingia te atua, te matua, nāna nei I mea, kia tiaho te māramatanga o te karaiti ki a koe. E te whaia whakangaro I te ao, I runga I te aroha o te atua matua, nāna nei koe I hanga, I runga I ngā mahi tohu a ihu karaiti, nāna nei koe I hoko, I runga I te mana o te wairua tapu, e whakakaha nei I a koe, whakauru atu ki te kāhui o te hunga pono, noho mai I runga I te rangi Māori. Nō reire te matua, I te wā ka haere mātou ki Kennedy's Bay. A tēnei mātou I inoi atu ki a koe te matua. Uhia mai tō korowai manaki kai runga I a mātou katoa. Ho mai e te matua ki a mātou a te haere pai ki tēnā marae. Kia rātou e tatari ana mōna. Ho mai hoki e te matua kia rātou hoki tō rangi Māori e pērā ki te rangi Māori e ko ho mai e koe ki tō tātou whānau I tēnei wā. Tēnei mātou e inoi ana I runga I tō ingoa. Āmen.
Dreams that you dream of